Hello, my name is Teresita Blanco, the Artsy sister, and today we're starting with Saturnastra Woden. This is chapter 1, when Woden happened upon the forest wish. There isn't going to be a prologue because I think it is done in a waste of words, and I suppose it doesn't serve one purpose or another, though I never remember ever bothering to read the prologue. If nobody reads it, why bother writing it? When I'm just trying to collect my thoughts. And the word better be on paper, and if I had them just rattling around on my own head, it gets a little bit spooky and a little crazy. In my former life, I was a bit of a scribe, and before I was cast down due to my foolishness. And we all tend to are rather foolish indeed at some point of our life or another. And it almost seemed like an eternity ago, and based on the lifespan of most creatures, it might as well be an eternity. Still, I do not want to forget. If I must atone for my sins, so be it. Alas, this little book is not about me, but about my little companion, a little certain minx named Woden. I came upon the world known as Saturnastra with my pet human Woden 2 years ago, and as with most of our little minxes and hobbies, it always took longer than I would prefer to get acclimated, as my dear Woden likes to call it. And for those that do not know, Saturnastra is just a fancy name for the planet formerly known as Saturn. And for many centuries, the humans have been renaming the planet, and even a couple of alien species fly by give it a name. And what you call a place has no bearing unless it has sentience. And I'm a sentient fellow, and I do prefer it when people call me by my name. This reminds me, my name is Bayl, which means Lord. It is a bit presumptuous name, I know, and back when I was a spring chicken with my wings not frozen solid, I had dreams of grandeur, and for this I was punished, and many eons passed, and I eventually came upon little Woden. And for reasons I do not understand, I made a contract with her, and now I am bounded to her till her death. And I do not know if it was I do not know if it was a clumsy summoning spell, or her haughty tone, or the fact that she wanted me to serve her in exchange of a cookie. Mind you, it was a rather delicious cookie, perhaps the best cookie a lord like me has ever tasted. And it was a unique and unusual arrangement, and I had nothing better to do, and so for the last 2 years I have been Woden's companion. So it's a demon that agreed to work for a human because for a cookie instead of a soul. It was a really good cookie. A fair bargain, a fair trade. So yeah, don't always offer your soul. You can barter with other things, you lunatic. Imagine if that black bottle had offered Sebastian McCaden a cookie and he had accepted, and he'd be like, oh my god, I'm so stupid, what am I doing offering a soul to a demon when I have options?
See, now I'm curious, can Woden die?
Well, yeah, everyone dies. Everything has to die at a certain point. That's the natural order of things. Because even like through radioactive decay, the atoms break down, you know. Or she can get killed. During that time, Woden has amused herself playing in the forest and bossing around her sibling. She knows her leader is hiding something, but she's too uncaring to ask about it. There is something particular she desires, but this wish has not manifested yet. Today was like any other day, except that Woden found herself alone. The day before, Madu had arbitrarily sent each of his mates on their own individual missions, and I see the man is full of baloney. And I call him Madu because that is the name he seems to be thinking about a lot. And the way that Woden is showing a preference for the same way that Woden is showing a preference for that name. Any day now, both of those fools will make it official, and the name is pronounced Woden. It is not the ideal name for a pretty little flower like her, and she is always gushing about the plants and other creepy crawlies. And just look at her now, all bright-eyed, seeing the butterflies and fairies flying about. And her pretty factory makes splendor darkens as she continues her journey throughout the forest. And she lifts both her index finger as she points straight in front of her. Using them like a dowsing machine, she starts scanning the area, saying, beep, beep. She's like this, beep, beep, beep. After running in circles for a couple of hours, she frowns and says, aren't you going to say anything? You seem busy, so I did not want to interrupt, I said, staring at her coolly. Her white robes were as pristine as ever as a result of one of the many pointless enchantments that he had. It's okay, so what do you want to talk about, asked Woden? Nothing, I said. I know that face, she said, pointing at my expressionless face, and she added, what do you want to ask? I'm just a bit curious about Woden, I said. It was a bit unusual living with a fellow who could read minds. Woden just sounds right, you know? It is also the name of a forest type of magician, and since I am in the forest, it felt like right, you know? Answered Woden. I see, I answered, and Woden was a bit of a blockhead sometimes, and so the name Woden finally made sense to me. Because it also sounds like wooden, like something made of wood, so, you know. So how do you plan on trimming the fat, I asked. Well, by doing some exercise and eating right. How about you? Asked Woden. I haven't eaten any salads in centuries, so I'm not too unconcerned, I answered. Woden scratched her silver mane, and then she said, I have no idea what you're talking about. I think you do, I said, sighing. And we continued our way through the forest till dusk, and Woden did not notice that night had fallen as she focused on a particular scent. And it was the scent of dry rose petals, herbs, and spices. After 2 hours of walking, she found the source of the scent. And it came from an old hag collecting components in the woods. Again Woden sighed, and I said to her with my awesome mind powers, what's the matter? I can't help but feel a bit disappointed, I said, Woden. Yep, she's not much to look at, I answered. If it wasn't for the spell component, you wouldn't know she was a magic user. Don't think too deeply on it, said Woden. And there was a faint rustling near the hag, who looked up startled, and a bunny passed through the corner of her eye. The hag saw it pass by, and then she looked up at the night sky as the clouds started to hovering over her, hiding the tiny moon's moonlight. And when the light returned, she saw an owl hood just on top of her head. The hag smiled when she saw the owl, and Woden too looked up to see the owl, and everyone who was not superstitious likes owls. I like owls too. Woden noticed that it was a barn owl with its heart-shaped face, white body, and brown wings. And my admiration of the owl was interrupted when I felt a strange burning sensation on my skin, and the dumb hag was throwing salt at me. And hissing, I yelled, Can an old demon enjoy owls without some lunatic throwing salt at them? Away with you, demon, yelled the hag, throwing even more salt at me. The salt could not kill me, but it certainly irritated my skin. In layman's terms, it was like throwing salt on an open wound, except the open wound was my regular icy skin. And common demons would usually run away when confronted with salt. However, since I am one of the pioneers in this business, I had other skills as well. And my soul swallowed my physicality as such that the hag salt could no longer harm me. The hag could still sense my presence, but it could no longer see me, and this annoyed her quite a bit. Normally when magic users and second-sighted people see spirits, it is because 2 factors that need to coincide. The person has to have a strong desire to see the spirit, and the spirit has to want to be seen. And since I did not want the stupid hag to make a big deal about me, I kept myself hidden. The owl looked in my direction, and it gave me the impression that it could see me. As with everything, there is always the exception. And not feeling herself safe, the hag picked up the basket and gathered her dingy skirts to make her way home. When she was standing at her full hunched height, she noticed a sliver of white against a dark mossy background. She came closer and she saw Woden coolly staring back at her. She noticed Woden's robes and the protection runes around them. She then said to Woden, Where's your mother? She is here and there, and between that and the rest, and yours, answered Woden truthfully. Mine is dead and buried, answered the hag. Did you kill her? Asked Woden. No, she killed herself. Now stop it with the stupid questions, and I am taking you back to town, said the hag, picking up Woden and strapping her to her back. But I'm not from any town, answered Woden. That's not my problem. I can't be having dumb kids dying on the woods, and if your parents want you dead, they should have had the decency to kill you themselves instead of dumping them on me, answered the hag as she started to walk. Why is it bad that kids die in your woods? Asked Woden. It's common for dads and moms to scare kids with stories of hags that kill children, and I don't need any courses to link any proof to such tales, and just one is enough to have the knights all up in here, wanting to flush me out. Sure, I can hide for months, but eventually the hunger pangs start, and that's when they get you, and those bastards are persistent, explained the hag. And she doesn't like kill children that are sent to the woods, but since the children are wandering around in the books, they naturally die on their own, so then obviously they blame her for it. And I bet, dude, I'm just an old hag trying to survive. I can't be taking care of all of the random kids they abandon here. How candid of you. How come you're not surprised by my vocabulary, inquired Woden. You're not the first talker the little rat I have bothered to rescue, and you certainly won't be the last, considering how things are progressing, explained the hag. How so? Asked Woden. We're in the middle of a civil war, and it won't be long till it spills to every corner of the kingdom, explained the hag. The hag grew quiet as she took her bearings, and the moon was barely visible. And the roof of the hickory trees did not help much. And according to Woden, the forest was called deciduous. And the hag looked about left and then right, and she circled around a tree, and then she started walking back to the way she had come. And she doubled down again, and this time walking in a different direction. And a couple of owls hooted, and the sound they made started to irritate the hag. And tugging at her long, dingy gray mane, Woden asked, "Are you lost, Miss Hag?" Hag. What a rude thing to say to someone, snapped the hag. "Well, excuse me, but you referred to yourself as a hag a couple of minutes ago," explained Woden. "I ought to give you a whipping for getting smart on me," grumbled Miss Hag. "How human are you threatening a fellow with violence for making you look like a fool? It is not as if I called you out in the middle of a town square and you did not have the good manners to give me a name when I introduced myself," said Woden. "You never introduced yourself," corrected the hag. "Ah, so you were paying attention. This pleases me so, my mount," said Woden, kicking the sides of the hag, and then she added, "Pick up the pace, will you, and lest the morning catches us in these filthy surroundings." The hag stoically ignored Woden, and again she circled around a bit in the fashion typical of someone who is legitimately lost. And the wind picked up, and with it came the faint scent of burning incense, and based on the scent, it reminded me a bit of cinnamon or burning amber. Either way, it was making me hungry, and the hag too sniffed the air, and she followed the smell back to her burrow. And her house was made of cob, and while the roof was composed of sod. And it camouflaged well with its surroundings, and one could easily walk on top of the roof and pass by the house without noticing or take a nasty plunge. And the windows were small and made of wood. And waiting outside was a fire elemental, and elementals were raw elements that had somehow acquired a soul and had become sentient. And they were often grouped alongside demons, and since they were mostly magical, it was common for them to manifest a body, using their element as a base, and though some indeed acquire demonic nature due to its impurities, and how the elementals become impure vary, and the human hand usually is involved in it in one way or another. And you know how it is, everything they touch turns into fertilizer. And since this elemental had a human humanoid form, she probably was already married, she probably was married to a human once, and the ritual of marriage, when performed right, causes the fusion of both souls, who now inhabit two bodies. And since the elementals have a lesser soul, they tend to marry more soulful creatures. And during my ruminations, Woden and her companion had gone inside, and I made an effort to follow, but the fire elemental saw me, and she blocked my path. And I tried entering through the window, and she did the same. And frowning, I placed my cold, icy hand on her lukewarm shoulder, and I gently gave her a shove that sent her flying through the air. I chuckled and then went inside, and it would be a while before she was able to fly back. I found Woden sitting by the heart of the house, and the heart being the place where the fireplace was located. And I saw a cooking pot with the remains of a half-eaten stew, and the hag added a couple of herbs she had collected and started to stir her midnight snack. And she frowned when she noticed the absence of her companion, and normally the fire elemental would have had the fire up and running. And since her meal was starting to grow cold, the hag did things the old-fashioned way by throwing a couple of sticks into the fireplace, and then she started to blow on it to give it a bit more juice. I do not know why breathing on it helps, and I guess fire was just out of breath or something like it. Time, bro?
10 minutes.
The hag started to shiver when she sat down to eat, and this was in part due to me standing right behind her, and she drew closer to the fireplace in an effort to get a little warmer, and Woden thought at me, and come stand beside me, and it's a little too stuffy in here. I am not an air conditioner. If you are hot, remove your robes, I retorted. Yeah, you would like that, wouldn't you, snorted Woden silently. And I narrowed my eyes and moved away from her, and I started to amuse myself by rummaging over the top all the worldly possessions of the hag, and by standing near the window, this made whatever air passed by enter cold, so in a way I ended up doing what my little buttercup wanted, and the hag sipped her stew in silence, and from time to time she would look about as if searching for something, that something being me. And the hag was a true hag in both name and in nature, and I suppose she might have something of a name, but she has yet to say it. And her house was so dingy with creepy crawlies and even a lurker in one of the corners. And he was hiding between the jar of pickles and the jar with the preserved skin squirreled. And I brought out a cold index finger to my mouth and started to bite on it. And aside from the stand of a spell component, the hag had a couple of books, which I assumed were magical, even though I said no magic from them. Then again, just because a book has magic spells written on it doesn't mean that the paper and the book itself is magical. And I was then when I ran into a huge barrel, and it seemed like it could contain wine. and I tried to pass my head through the barrel by making it easier to get at the goop. However, the barrel was enchanted, so I just smacked my face senselessly into it. Not looking up, the hag said, "That should keep you out." "And that should keep who out?" asked Woden. "Oh, nothing, nobody," said the hag. "And are you going to feed me?" asked Woden. "Well, you certainly do not look starved, and even your mouth is all rosy like it got pomegranate. So no, in 4 hours it'll be morning and you will be someone else's problem," explained the hag. "I am in your house, and hags are duty bound to show their hospitality," said Woden, standing up. "Hag, now this is a rude thing to say to someone, and I'm barely 76, she said. "And respect your elders, as they say. Now shut up and go to sleep." "What's respect?" asked Woden. "It means that you admire me, and as such you treat me like," explained the hag. "Huh, I see, and what do you consider nice treatment?" "Blind obedience." "I do not know you, nor respect you enough to make things convenient for you," insisted Woden. The hag narrowed her eyes, and then she brought out some small spectacles to look at Woden better, and she was considering whether Woden was old enough to be beaten. And Woden looked so small and frail that she decided that it was preferably not to give vent to her slight annoyance. The hag was silent, and Woden emulated her in her silence. And the hag was lost in thought, or she was dead. It is hard to tell with some people. And since she was a magic user, the magic overshadowed all other natural traits, and it was like a camouflage for her true nature. You could neither read her thoughts nor get a feel for her soul, and it was part of the reason why most demons have stopped harvesting magic users' souls. And it was always a crapshoot with it, and one could spend years waiting and slaving over a fellow, and then when it came time for the reaping, it was a pathetic piece of crap, not even worth fit for reincarnation. And most souls are like that. They are worthless as the person who owns them. The hag slowly rose from her seat and went to lay down on her bed, and then even more slowly got up again, and she tied Woden to a chair and then went to sleep, and she added half sleeping, "If you make even the smallest noise, I will gag you too." "What a dick," I said to Woden. "It is probably her upbringing," said Woden, defending her, "and they had her Woden this time, and because my girl had not bothered to sink her thoughts into my head, or whatever she calls her freaky mind powers." "Let the girl be, Ethel," said the hag. "You're Ethel set out, and I am talking to Bayl instead," explained Woden, or Bayl. "Ethel Bayl, whoever you are, I see all in baño, and I see all in silence," you said, the hag drawing runes in the air, and she spoke in the fancy tongue mages seem to find us in this planet. And the spell sewn my mouth shut, which was a minor discomfort, and I pulled at my lips and removed them before growing new ones that were not sewn shut. I then ate the remainder, and it was not green. It was not green to leave discarded pieces of demonic flesh lying about, and my body is not biodegradable, so that is why." And Woden waited a couple of minutes to see if the old hag had fallen asleep, and the hag was tense because Woden's present, and she was just resting her body enough for the short trip that awaited her tomorrow. And since Woden was bored, she removed some golden strings from the edge of her robes, and she then molded them into a solid string that had both ends tied together to form a circle. And then she made a basic cat's cradle, and when the string of the magical rope was put in such a form, it acted like a summoning circle. And her basic arrangement called forth moths, and more specifically a moth Woden called Death's Head Hawk Moth. And I never did understand why it was called so, and the moth's back did resemble to me a grinning fruit bat. And I do know for a fact that humans found this particular moth scary because of the sound they made when irritated. And based on this moth, I could tell Woden was irritated by quiet time. As if inspired, I added my own hands to the cat's cradle to change the form of the summoning circle. And it was interesting to see what sort of thing I could summon based on the limitations imposed by the shapes that the cat's cradle could form. And I expanded her design to form the firmament, and the summoning circle called forth a bunch of crickets, and the crickets started making a lot of noise, which annoyed the moth, who also started screeching. And when the poor woman got out of bed, she was witness to the plague that we had created. And by undoing the circle, the creepy bugs were sent away. So like they made a little summoning circle, and then the house got full of moths and crickets. The old woman, instead of being angry, she was intrigued, and right away she dragged a chair and sat in front of Woden, and she said, "Show me the magic spell again." "It isn't so much a spell as a summoning. The string itself is magical, and made from spiders seal milk from goats," explained Woden. The old woman saw Woden make a new shape, and she started directing Woden with her hands, and together they formed a house, and in spite of the fact that the pattern meant house, the circle summoned goldfish-like bodies. And like the other animals, the creature started bleeding and making all sorts of whining noises. And summoning is quite an interesting misunderstood art. And the second in this pattern relates to the size of what you can summon forth, and the rest is just willpower and a pint of magic. And summoners need not be magical to call forth anything. And the old woman proceeded to examine the edge of Woden's robes, and they had a familiar bit of gibberish about them. And while the old woman examined Woden's appearance, Woden studied her in turn, and after getting stuck of her surroundings, Woden realized that one of her people had been in this place before, and it wasn't too uncomfortable for her folk to get around, and they rarely lingered in a place lest their way home be closed off forever. And the memory fragments related many things, and the main thing that interested Woden was the name of the old woman and her relations. When the hag was small, her grandmother told her stories about the mysterious world that lay hidden underground, and the same world only lightly touched by the dwarves whose civilization too was swallowed up by the place, and she called it the roaming, rotating row house. RRR. And many of the artifacts she had brought back from her trips occasionally had those markings. And one day she did not return, and her mother, knowing full well that the angels of that mysterious place, decided to have some things were better left buried. And this was not the old woman's memory, rather Woden's collected memory had picked up something related to the hag after completing the analysis of our surroundings. Time, bro?
2 minutes 30 seconds.
And a precursor of Woden had been inside the hut once, and the person living here now was the same little girl Woden's precursor had met. And the woman was apparently called Agnes Ducisa, and her mother being Anne, and her grandmother was known as Anna Goldie. And the memory fragment stated that Anna used to travel to Woden's birthplace, and one day when Agnes was 4, Anna left with Woden's precursor and never to return. And this is as far as Woden bothered to see as a memory fragment. And the rain started slightly pouring, and by now the fire demon had returned home a bit more composed, and she gestured to me to whisper, "Come here and face me." Alright, let's leave it here. Bye-bye, God bless.